everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. And this time we're going full Hollywood, getting a peek behind the curtain of this super popular teen drama everyone's talking about through the diary of its star, Gemma Coles.
Ooh, this is gonna be good. I mean, a tell-all diary entry to talk about a raw and unfiltered look into what it's really like to deal with fame, especially with all the whole Nepo baby debate going on.
Yeah, and speaking of Nepo babies, Gemma actually talks a lot about her co-star, Corinne.
Oh, yeah.
Uh,
Corinne. Things are about to get interesting, right? Because Gemma herself, well, she's no stranger to the Nepo baby label. I mean, she got her start on the Graysons, right?
totally. And she even mentions this quote from an actor on that show, what was his name? Garland Carter. He told her that a cast is like an ecosystem, which I gotta say, pretty accurate, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, think about it. Every actor, they walk on set with their own baggage, right? Their own insecurities, their ambitions. It's this web of relationships that can either, make or break a project.
So basically what you're saying is,
It's a recipe for disaster or a masterpiece. You never know.
okay, so let's break down this ecosystem a little. Gemma divides the cast into these like distinct groups. Kind of reminds me of high school all over again, you know?
Oh, totally. You can't escape those social dynamics, even in like a creative field like acting. It's fascinating.
For sure. So first you've got your big break kids, those newcomers who are understandably a bit starstruck.
Hmm.
Gemma mentions this one girl, Patty, who was so nervous meeting Gemma, she could barely speak.
Oh, I bet. Can you imagine? Brand new to the industry, suddenly you're thrown into this high pressure environment and you're just like desperate to make a good impression. It's a lot.
Totally. And then there's Lucas, who seems a bit more, I don't know, confident. He even asks Gemma for advice on, like, handling on-set intimacy protocol.
Which is so important. I'm glad that's becoming a more common conversation in the industry these days. The safety and comfort of actors, especially in those vulnerable scenes, it should be a priority.
100%.
Yeah.
But here's where it gets really juicy. So Gemma talks about this other group, the Nepo babies. And, well, this is where Corinne comes in, right?
Yeah.
And we know this is a topic close to Gemma's heart.
Yeah, definitely. And what's interesting is how Gemma observes these like subtle differences in how Corinne and Polly, the other Nepo baby on set, kind of handle their privilege,
Yeah, like how so?
Well, Polly's background is like next level privilege. I mean, Grammy winning musician parents. That's a lot to live up to. Whereas Corinne's mom's a writer, her dad's a comedy producer. So successful, obviously, but not quite the same, level of fame.
Right, right, okay. So that kind of makes you wonder, does that influence how they each act on set? Like how they carry themselves?
It's a really good question. And we have to remember Gemma herself, she's coming to terms with her own privilege, right? So she's observing all of this with a really, I think, insightful perspective.
Right, and let's not forget, Polly is dating Patty, one of those big break kids, and Gemma even worries about, like, what'll happen to Patty's career if things go south with Polly, which just adds another layer to this whole ecosystem thing.
Oh, absolutely. It speaks to those power imbalances that can exist in relationships, even outside of the whole Nepo baby thing, like when one person has more connections, more security in the industry, it can definitely affect the other person's their path.
Yeah, that's a lot to unpack. Now let's talk about Corinne, because Gemma seems, well, kind of fascinated by her.
As she should be. From what Gemma describes, Corinne's this like party princess who really lets loose on the weekends, but then on set, she's the ultimate professional. It's impressive.
It's like she's got this whole other side to her.
Totally. And it makes you wonder how much of that work hard, play hard thing is like a coping mechanism, dealing with the pressures of the industry, especially as a Black actress facing that extra scrutiny, especially with the whole Nepo baby label on top of it.
Right, it's like she's constantly navigating these different versions of herself. It makes you wonder about the toll that must take, you know?
Exactly. And what's really interesting is Gemma mentioning Corinne's thoughts on like intersectional feminism and colorism. It shows that Corinne's really aware of those societal dynamics, especially in a place like Hollywood.
And that's where it feels like Gemma, who's also trying to figure out her place in all of this, that's where she really starts to learn from Corinne's experiences as a Black actress.
Yes. And this is what makes their dynamic so fascinating. You have Gemma, this rising star, dealing with the Nepo baby label, and then Corinne navigating a whole other set of challenges. They both have these unique perspectives that are shaping how they see the world.
It's like they're both challenging and influencing each other's viewpoints at the same time, which just adds another layer to this whole ecosystem
Hmm.
idea.
Precisely. And it really highlights how important diversity is, not just on screen, but behind the scenes, too. When you have people from different backgrounds with different life experiences all coming together, it just enriches the storytelling, makes it more authentic. You
Yes,
know,
it's more real, more relatable.
exactly. It reflects the real world. It's like she's, getting this incredible education, not just about acting, but about navigating the world, being aware.
Yeah, totally. And you know what else Gemma mentions? How Corin's always pushing back against those stereotypes, like on set and off.
Well, that makes sense, right? I mean, it seems like Corinne's someone who she doesn't fit into a box. She's embracing all these different sides of herself, which honestly, it's got to be both empowering and exhausting.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And it makes you think. Corinne's already dealing with the pressures of the industry, but then you add on the whole, being a black actress coming from this family with a legacy in Hollywood, a place that hasn't always been so welcoming to black stories or talent.
Absolutely. It just highlights those systemic issues that are still so present in Hollywood. Even with a family legacy, it's not like the path is paved with the same opportunities or support for a black actress.
Right, like she has to work twice as hard just to be seen and heard for herself.
And honestly, that's something black women have been doing in all areas of life for, well, forever.
That's true. Like Corinne's carrying this weight of representation on her shoulders, even if it's not something Gemma explicitly says.
Yeah, and it's often unspoken, but it's there, especially for marginalized groups in the spotlight, that pressure to not just succeed, but to represent an entire community, to break down those stereotypes, be a role model.
On top of that, she's trying to stay true to herself, while navigating this whole crazy world of fame in Hollywood.
Exactly. It's a lot to handle, and it really speaks to Corinne's strength and resilience.
Okay, so we've got Corinne and Polly, your Nippo babies.
Yeah.
But Gemma also talks about these other groups on set, right? Like the stuffy veterans.
Oh, yes. The ones who are a little, shall we say, threatened by the new generation.
Yes, like Kelly, who Gemma calls out for making those like passive-aggressive comments about Gemma's social media following.
Oh, it's classic, isn't it? That need to assert their seniority, especially with the industry changing so much.
Totally. And then there are the midlife crisis veterans, the ones who are trying way too hard to be hip and relatable to the younger cast members.
Yes. Name dropping the latest TikTok trends, trying to use Gen Z slang. We've all seen it.
Oh, totally. Like, you've got Mike constantly asking about Olivia Rodrigo, and then there's Harold trying to use slang in every other sentence. It's almost painful.
It's kind of endearing in a way, but it also shows that fear of irrelevance, that fear of being, well, old news. It's something that can happen in any field, but especially in Hollywood where youth is everything.
It's a lot. All these different personalities, each with their own baggage and agendas, all swirling around in this ecosystem.
It really is like a microcosm of the whole world. We all bring our own stuff, good and bad, to the table.
Right. So it makes you wonder, like, how much of this is just like Hollywood being Hollywood and how much is just like life,
Exactly. And that's what makes Gemma's observations about Corinne so interesting. You've got this young black actress dealing with fame, her family's legacy, and then just all these societal expectations on top of it all.
And through it all, she's just trying to figure out her own path, make her own mark.
Exactly. And that's not easy, let's be real, especially with everyone watching your every move.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of strength, a lot of self-awareness.
It's funny because even Gemma, even though she's the one with the Nepo baby label, she still talks about her own insecurities,
Yeah.
Growing up in a trailer park, always feeling like she didn't quite belong.
It just shows you, right? Even the people who seem like they have it all figured out, they've got their own struggles, their own doubts. We all do.
Yeah, like everyone's fighting their own battles no matter where they come from or what they've achieved,
100%. It's something we can all relate to. We've all got those insecurities, those fears, things we're trying to overcome.
It's like through writing about Corinne, Gemma's realizing that everyone's journey is just like totally unique, even if they're both trying to make it in this crazy world of Hollywood.
Exactly. And recognizing that,
Yeah.
that shared humanity, even with all our differences, that's powerful stuff.
It's like we often put celebrities up on these pedestals, right? But at the end of the day, they're just people trying to figure things out, just like us.
So true. And I think Gemma's diary really reminds us of that, It
Yeah.
peels back that glamorous facade and shows us that, yeah, there are real people under there.
Which is really refreshing,
Yeah.
Especially these days when we're just bombarded with images of perfection and like effortless success all the time.
It's easy to forget that everyone has their own stuff, their own struggles, but remembering that, that shared humanity, it helps us connect. build empathy for ourselves and for others.
It's like Gemma saying, hey, even though our paths might be different, we're all in this together.
Exactly. And that's a really important message, don't you think?
100%. Lead with empathy, lead with understanding in Hollywood and everywhere else, right?
Beautifully said. And on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive for today.
This was a good one. Definitely a lot to think about. Until next time, everyone, keep diving deep.